In 1989, just 5 minutes after takeoff from Bogota, Colombia, a bomb tore Avianca Flight 203 apart in midair. 107 people died, and this wasn't an act of war. It was a business decision. One man believed an enemy might be on that plane. He wasn't. That man was Pablo Escobar. And in the same year, his organization was reportedly making so much cash they spent $2,500 every month just buying rubber bands to bundle the money. But here's the unbelievable part. The fortune, the violence, the cartels, the political assassinations, all of it revolved around something much older than cocaine. A tiny green leaf, a leaf humans have used for roughly 8,000 years. So how did an ancient mountain plant become the foundation of one of the most powerful criminal industries in history? And why is that same plant still legally used in medicine today? The story begins thousands of years before Pablo Escobar, in the Andes of South America. Around 8,000 years ago, people living in what is now northern Peru were already chewing coca leaves. Archaeologists found ancient coca leaves buried alongside pieces of calcium-rich rock that had been burned and scraped. That combination matters, because alkaline ash or lime helps release the active compounds from the leaf. And coca wasn't originally some recreational drug. It was survival equipment. Chewed leaves could reduce hunger and fatigue and help people cope with the brutal conditions of high-altitude life. Imagine farming on mountain terraces at 10,000, 12,000, even 14,000 feet above sea level. Thin air, cold temperatures, limited food. Coca gave workers something incredibly valuable: endurance. For thousands of years, the leaf remained part of Andean life. Then came the Inca, and they transformed coca from a useful plant into something deeply connected to religion, politics, and power. At the height of the Inca Empire, coca was everywhere. Priests used coca leaves in rituals. The leaf was offered to Pachamama, the Earth Mother. And according to Inca tradition, coca was even considered a gift from the sun god. But coca wasn't only spiritual, it was practical. Inca runners called chasquis carried messages across enormous distances through the Andes, and coca helped people endure the altitude and physical demands of the journey. Then, in 1532, everything changed. Spanish conquistadores led by Francisco Pizarro captured the Inca Emperor Atahualpa. The empire began to collapse. The Spanish wanted gold, they wanted silver, and eventually they discovered Potosí, a mountain in modern-day Bolivia containing one of the richest silver deposits ever discovered. The Spanish forced enormous numbers of indigenous workers into the mines. Conditions were horrifying. Workers descended deep underground, breathing dust, climbing dangerous ladders, and working in freezing high-altitude conditions. And the Spanish noticed something. Workers who chewed coca could work longer, eat less, and tolerate the conditions better. Suddenly, the leaf the church had condemned as pagan became economically useful. Coca fields expanded, the leaf was transported to the mines, and the same plant that had been part of Andean culture for thousands of years was now helping power the colonial silver economy. The leaf hadn't changed. The system around it had. For centuries, Europe barely understood coca. The leaves lost their potency during long ocean voyages. But in 1860, a German chemist named Albert Niemann isolated the active compound. He called it cocaine, and that changed everything. Suddenly, the ancient leaf could be transformed into a concentrated chemical. The world didn't immediately see cocaine as a dangerous drug. Quite the opposite. It was marketed as medicine. In the 1860s, Angelo Mariani created Vin Mariani, a tonic made with coca leaves and wine, and it became a sensation. The product wasn't hiding in an alley. It was being promoted openly, by celebrities, by doctors, and even by powerful institutions. Then, medicine discovered another use. In 1884, an Austrian ophthalmologist named Karl Kohler discovered that cocaine could numb the eye. That meant doctors could perform delicate eye surgery without completely knocking the patient unconscious. And this discovery changed modern medicine. Later local anesthetics, such as procaine and lidocaine, were developed as safer alternatives. But the basic breakthrough began with cocaine's ability to block pain. And then, cocaine entered everyday American life. In 1886, pharmacist John Pemberton created a drink using coca leaf extract and caffeine-rich cola nut. It was sold at a pharmacy soda fountain for just 5 cents. The name? Coca-Cola. Originally, it wasn't simply a refreshing drink. It was marketed as a medicinal tonic, a product supposedly useful for headaches, fatigue, and nervous exhaustion. And cocaine wasn't limited to Coca-Cola. American pharmacies sold cocaine toothache remedies, cocaine powders, cocaine cigarettes, cocaine wines, even mail-order cocaine kits. At the time, there wasn't some secret underground cocaine market. Cocaine was legal. It was advertised openly. But the honeymoon didn't last. Doctors began documenting addiction and serious side effects. And then, something even darker entered the story: race. In the early 20th century, sensational and racist stories spread claims that cocaine made black men extraordinarily violent or even resistant to bullets. These stories were false, but they helped create public fear. In 1906, manufacturers were required to disclose cocaine on labels. Then came the Harrison Narcotics Act of 1914, which heavily restricted the drug. By the 20th century, cocaine had largely disappeared from mainstream American life. But it wasn't gone. It was waiting. Then came the 1970s. Cocaine returned, but this time it wasn't being sold as medicine. It was being sold as luxury. Expensive, exclusive, glamorous. At places like Studio 54 and inside Wall Street culture, cocaine became associated with wealth and status. American demand exploded. And thousands of miles away, Colombia saw an opportunity. Colombia didn't produce most of the coca at the time, but geographically it was perfectly positioned between South American production areas and the enormous American market. Enter Pablo Escobar. Escobar and his partners industrialized cocaine trafficking. They built jungle laboratories, they used small aircraft, they established smuggling routes. And eventually, the Medellin cartel became one of the most powerful criminal organizations on Earth. At its peak, it was estimated to control a huge share of the cocaine entering the United States. The money became almost impossible to manage. Escobar's organization reportedly spent thousands of dollars a month on rubber bands just to bundle cash. And according to accounts from his brother, enormous amounts of money were lost every year because rats ate it or moisture destroyed it. Imagine having so much cash that losing millions to rats becomes a business expense. But the money created something far more dangerous than wealth. It created power. Escobar's message to officials was brutally simple: bribe me or die. Judges were murdered. Journalists were murdered. Police officers were murdered. Politicians were assassinated. And in November 1989, Avianca Flight 203 was bombed. The intended target wasn't even on the plane. 107 innocent people died. Escobar was eventually killed in 1993. But killing one kingpin didn't kill the market. The business simply changed hands. In the 1980s, cocaine became available in a cheaper smokable form known as crack. A drug that had once symbolized wealth was now devastating some of America's poorest communities. Addiction spread, drug markets expanded, violence increased, and America responded with a massive war on drugs. After basketball star Len Bias died from cocaine-related heart failure in 1986, Congress passed the Anti-Drug Abuse Act. One of its most controversial features was the sentencing disparity between crack and powder cocaine. 5 grams of crack could trigger the same mandatory minimum sentence as 500 grams of powder cocaine, a 100-to-1 ratio. Because crack was disproportionately associated with poor black communities, the consequences fell heavily along racial lines. Congress eventually reduced the disparity, but the damage had already been done. And then there's the money. Drug trafficking generates enormous amounts of cash, Some major banks have faced massive penalties for failing to prevent cartel money from entering the financial system. The lesson was uncomfortable. The drug trade wasn't operating completely outside the legitimate economy. Money could move through banks, businesses, real estate, and international financial networks. The war on drugs had become a war against an industry capable of adapting faster than governments could destroy it. And now comes the part that sounds impossible. Cocaine is still legally used in American medicine. Under tightly controlled conditions, pharmaceutical cocaine can be used by doctors because it has two useful properties. It numbs tissue and constricts blood vessels. That's especially useful in certain ear, nose, and throat procedures. And there's another strange connection. Coca leaves are still legally imported into the United States under federal regulation. The cocaine can be extracted for pharmaceutical use, and the remaining processed leaf material can be used for flavoring, including flavoring connected to Coca-Cola. So yes, the story that began with an ancient Andean leaf eventually became connected to one of the world's most famous beverages, modern anesthesia, international crime, and one of the largest illegal markets on Earth. And maybe that's the strangest lesson of all. Coca itself isn't the whole story. The leaf existed thousands of years before cocaine. It survived ancient civilizations. It survived conquest. It survived colonial exploitation. It entered medicine. It entered advertising. It entered popular culture. It entered organized crime, and it even became part of modern financial history. Today, coca leaves remain part of traditional culture in parts of Bolivia and Peru. For many Andean communities, the leaf is not synonymous with cocaine. It is history. It is tradition. It is survival. The plant stayed almost the same. Human civilization changed around it. An ancient leaf became a medicine. A medicine became a commercial product. A commercial product became a global drug. And that drug helped build fortunes, destroy communities, influence governments, and fuel violence across continents. So the real question isn't simply, is coca dangerous? The deeper question is, what happens when humans take something ancient, concentrate it, commercialize it, criminalize it, and turn it into billions of dollars? Because sometimes the most dangerous thing about a plant isn't the plant. It's what we build around it. If you want more hidden histories like this, subscribe. Because history is full of stories that sound impossible until you discover they're true.